The story begins with a pregnant woman being rushed to the hospital during a torrential downpour. The drama, the tension, the soaked upholstery. Tragically, she dies during childbirth, leaving her husband, Greg, to face the news that his newborn has albinism, a genetic condition resulting in the lack of pigmentation. When Greg meets his pale son, who is undergoing a brain wave test, because why not start diagnostics early? He is so overwhelmed that he denies the child is his. What a tough start to fatherhood. Fast forward 20 years, and we find Sheriff Doug investigating the death of an old man on a farm. During the search, they discover a boy hiding in the basement. Enter Jeremy Powder Reed, a pale young man who makes Casper look sun-kissed. He's been secluded in that basement his entire life, with only books as company. And not just any books, he's memorized them all. Step aside, Einstein. There's a new genius in town, and he probably glows in the dark. Jesse, a child services psychologist, decides Powder needs socialization and takes him to a boys' dormitory. Naturally, his appearance draws attention faster than a celebrity at a supermarket. At dinner, the resident bully, John, challenges Powder to balance a spoon on his nose. Powder, not one to back down, turns the spoon into a magneto dream, making it stand and attracting other spoons. The other boys are stunned, labeling him a freak. Note: never challenge a pale genius to a utensil duel. In physics class, Professor Ripley introduces a Jacob's ladder, a device producing an electric current. Powder reacts as if someone just cranked up the dubstep, trembling until the machine overloads and strikes him. He levitates because, of course, he levitates, causing panic in the class. The professor tries to shut off the machine but ends up smashing it with a chair. Powder is taken to the hospital but escapes by jumping out the window. If only all hospital discharges were that quick. During a camping trip, Powder's classmates think it's a brilliant idea to bring a gun. When Deputy Duncan shoots a deer, Powder, feeling the animal's pain, because empathy is his superpower, grabs Duncan's wrist and transfers the dying deer's sensations to him. Duncan convulses, and the boys are terrified. John, ever the impulsive teenager, points his gun at Powder, but his friend Mitch intervenes. Fun fact: John Carpenter was invited to direct this film, but declined due to scheduling conflicts with his movies In the Mouth of Madness and Village of the Damned. If I were in Powder's place during the spoon incident, I probably wouldn't have displayed my telekinetic powers in front of the bullies. Instead, a simple no thanks might have sufficed. But then again, where's the fun in that? After the tumultuous events, Powder is taken back to Jesse, who, with the typical concern of a mom catching her kid playing with electrical outlets, questions him about what happened. Powder, however, decides silence is the best answer and expresses his desire to go home. When Jesse insists, he angrily unleashes his powers, shattering glasses and bursting light bulbs, and leaves, declaring no one will keep him there for long. Meanwhile, Doug returns home and receives news from the family doctor that his wife's condition is worse than that of a secondary character in a horror movie. Though Doug doesn't understand why she keeps fighting, he believes there must be a reason. The doctor, with the subtlety of an elephant in a china shop, informs him that Doug will never know the reason since his wife is entirely unresponsive. The next day, while Powder is alone in the dining room, Professor Donald approaches and reveals that he felt a reactor-level energy when he touched Powder during the physics class incident. He mentions Einstein's theory that if someone used 100% of their brain, they could achieve unimaginable things, suggesting that Powder might be living proof of this. Donald, with the finesse of a used car salesman, expresses his desire to be friends with Powder to learn more. Powder, initially hesitant, eventually agrees. Doug, having an epiphany, decides Powder could help him communicate with his terminally ill wife through telepathy. Powder, acting as an impromptu medium, transmits Emma's thoughts to Doug, revealing that she's holding on because she doesn't want to pass away without wearing her wedding ring or reconciling with their estranged son, Steve. Doug, emotional, places the ring on his wife's finger, and with Powder's help, hears her voice one last time before she peacefully passes away. Steve arrives shortly after, and father and son reconcile. At a local fair, Powder meets Lindsay, who, unlike others, doesn't see him as a freak. After a conversation and an unexpected kiss, Lindsay's father, with all the grace of a bull in a china shop, confronts Powder and insults him. Jesse intervenes and takes Powder away. Heartbroken, Powder decides to run away back to his grandfather's farm, but not before an encounter with John and his friends, who humiliate him until he releases an electromagnetic wave that knocks them down. Realizing John is on the brink of death, Powder revives him with an improvised electric shock, impressing the bullies. When he arrives at the farm, Powder discovers all his belongings have been seized by the bank. Jesse, Donald, Doug, and Duncan arrive, trying to convince him to find a place where he'll be accepted. Suddenly, a storm forms and Powder runs into the field, where he is struck by lightning, vanishing in a flash of light. Composers John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith expressed interest in scoring Powder. Williams wanted to see the film first, but due to a tight schedule, this wasn't possible, and Goldsmith ended up taking the job. If I were in Powder's shoes during the basketball court humiliation, I probably wouldn't have used my powers so explosively, considering the possible consequences. Instead, I would have tried to walk away or seek help from an authority figure. However, I understand that under intense emotional pressure, his actions were an impulsive response to extreme bullying. An interesting point is how the film explores the interconnectedness of humans and nature, especially in scenes where Powder shares feelings and thoughts of other living beings, highlighting a profound empathy that challenges societal norms. Now, here's the video of a former sailor preparing his revenge for his sister's death. Check it out now.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect.